Hi, I'm Maunette Loeks with the Star-Herald. Welcome to this week's Table Talk. I'm sitting down with Sergeant Phil Eckerberg of the Scottsbluff Police Department. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you.
So today we're chatting about holiday enforcements. First, the Scottsbluff Police Department and other local agencies really recently conducted a special enforcement over the Thanksgiving holiday. Can you tell me a little bit about that enforcement and how it went?
Well, that enforcement over the Thanksgiving holiday was specifically for seatbelt enforcement. And we actually had some improvement. Did the Seatbelt Survey prior to the enforcement wave, and we were in the 52% range. We ended up in the, I believe it was the 58% range.
Yeah.
And so it was a 6% change over the course of a 5-day enforcement wave. So
Yeah.
I thought that was good, but it also means we got a long ways to go yet.
Yeah, 58% is not really a high number compared to other areas, I
No,
guess.
it's
Is it?
actually, we're definitely below the state average.
Uh-huh.
And then Nebraska's state average is below the national average. So,
Oh.
so we're kind of the lowest of the low
Right.
here in Scottsbluff on seatbelt usage.
So how does a special enforcement like that, well, first off, how do you get those percentages? And then secondly, how do you think it translates into encouraging people to wear their seatbelt every day, not just during the campaign?
Well, the percentages is real simple. We go out and do a seatbelt survey, and there's involved me standing on a corner counting cars that go by and see how many people have the seatbelts on. We do 4 intersections in town, and we do the same 4 intersections every time. We do 5th Avenue in East Overland, and then we do 20th and Broadway, and then we do Avenue B and 27th Street, and then we do 20th and I, Avenue I in Scottsbluff. And we do those 4 intersections, and I always have people come up to me afterwards saying, "What were you standing on the side of the corner there for?" And I was doing my seatbelt survey. And that's how we count 100 cars in each intersection, 100 cars that we can tell if the seatbelt is on or off.
Right.
With the tinted windows nowadays, it gets more and more difficult to do that. So a lot of cars you can't see, but the ones that we can see, and they just count 100 cars and how many have them and how many don't. And
So
that's where it comes from.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry. You've been doing it for a long time, so how does that 58% compare to some of the past years? Do you recall?
We are down. At one point in time, we were up in the mid-60s. We had it up in the mid-60s, but for whatever reason, it's gone back. I think since COVID hit in 2020, our seatbelt usage rate has gone down. Why that is, I don't know, but that's about the time frame it started declining again.
Interesting. And so, for those who might not know and might maybe need a little refresher, what are the laws regarding seatbelt usage?
Well, seatbelt usage in Nebraska is what's called a secondary offense, which just simply means I can't stop a car just for a seatbelt violation. I have to have another reason to stop a car. If I do see a seatbelt violation, I got to find another violation to make the traffic stop for, and I can't write a court summons citation for a seatbelt violation unless I'm writing a citation for another violation.
Right.
So that's of course our most common traffic violation in the last couple of years has been expired license plates.
Oh, interesting.
We go out and make expired license plate traffic stops. You go out and make 4 or 5 a day. There's just all kinds of expired plates out there. Again, why that is, I don't know. That's another thing that seems to become more common since COVID, since the COVID pandemic began as well. People aren't renewing their license plates. I don't know the reason behind that, but so we make a lot of them, and you see a lot of them without the seatbelts on, and a lot of them you can see they don't have the seatbelt on before you even turn the lights on.
Right.
So we'll add that onto the seatbelt, or add the seatbelt violation onto those license plate violations. But we also make traffic stops for other traffic violations. Common ones are speeding and stop sign violations and traffic light violations.
Yeah.
Of course, there's all kinds of traffic violations out
Right.
there. So we make a lot of traffic stops for that, and then we'll pick up the seatbelt violations as we get them. And of course, the enforcement wave period is a time period when we have extra funding that we've gotten from Nebraska Office of Highway Safety, and that comes from from the federal government. Their funding does, and then they funnel it down to us, and we take that and we have officers that sign up on a sign-up sheet and go out and work specifically just do
Right.
traffic enforcement for,
Yeah.
and I divide it up into 4-hour blocks. So
Right.
an officer can come in and work 4 hours and do nothing but traffic enforcement. They're not handling calls for service. They're not doing anything else. They're just looking for traffic
Yeah.
violations. And all officers at all times are looking for traffic violations.
Right.
The problem is we have other things
Right.
taking our attention away from just traffic
Yeah.
violations.
Yeah.
Because we work 12-hour shifts, and typical 12-hour shift will handle somewhere around 30 to 40 calls for service
Wow.
during that time. So.
And that was going to be a question that I had. Those selective campaign enforcements, they help police departments because it helps fund that overtime to allow you guys to focus on those priorities, I guess, that are laid out.
Yeah, it allows officers to focus on just that one thing,
Right.
and they're not getting distracted as
Uh-huh.
such by, having to
Right.
go on domestic disturbances and just do a lot of other things. I think these calls, domestic disturbances, it's a time-consuming call. It can take an officer off the street for several hours,
Wow.
or having to handle, mental health calls or
Uh-huh.
just any other shoplifting,
Any other call.
any other call,
Right.
and a lot of those can, like I said, they can take an officer off of his beat for several hours at a time.
Yeah.
Whereas the guys that are the grant-funded cars, and officers that are doing that, that's all they're focusing on. It's the only thing they have to
Right.
worry about is the traffic violations.
Uh-huh. Interesting. And with the New Year holiday coming up, agencies like Scottsbluff will participate in selectives aimed at preventing drunken driving. So can you tell me about what this year's campaign's looking like?
Well, it's looking very good, actually. We were well funded this year.
Yeah.
This is the largest grant I've ever received from Highway
Wow.
Safety. And so we're going to have a lot of officers out pretty much every day and every evening. I'm going to be able to have at least 2 officers out at a time.
What's your grant period?
The grant period starts today.
Today.
So the first officer is
16th
working will
of
be tonight.
December. Okay.
Yeah, 17th.
Oh, 17th.
Yeah, today's the 17th.
Day.
But yeah, it starts on Friday the 17th, and it goes through the 1st of January.
Uh-huh.
And I guess I've got plenty of funding. We got a very large, generous funding amount this time, and we'll be having multiple officers out pretty much every evening.
And how much did the Scottsbluff Police Department receive this year?
We actually received $15,000 this year.
Yeah.
So that's, I forget how many hours. It was over 200 hours.
Yeah.
I'll be able to have officers out.
And why did the department qualify for more funding? Is drunken driving offenses up in 2021, or what's some of the reasons why the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety, I think that's
Office
correct,
of Highway
Office of Highway
Office of
Safety,
Highway.
what's some of the reasons why they're maybe giving larger grants this year?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I know the last 2 or 3 years the grants have been getting considerably smaller than what they had been, and then all of a sudden, well, since the 1st of October, beginning of the new fiscal year, suddenly the grants are much higher than what they had been. I don't know if they got increased funding from the federal government. I don't know the reason for it, but we will certainly take advantage of that and use it to the best of our abilities.
Of course, yeah. And so you said you'll have more officers out this year. So about how many officers do you have that will be participating in the enforcement this year?
I don't know without going through and counting the people that have signed up. We have a group of officers that enjoy doing that kind of work. There's probably, somewhere around 10 of us that like doing that and that consistently sign up for those.
Cool.
Volunteer for those extra duties.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head how many of us are doing it, but we'll have. And I'm running every evening. I'm running 8 4-hour shifts.
Yeah.
So we'll do an early shift and a late shift, and then on weekends I'm putting out some late afternoon shifts as well. For Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays. I figure with football games and bowl games and stuff going on, we can still pick up. There'll be some DUIs out there.
Yeah.
As of this year, I looked it up this morning. As of this morning, we have made 72 DUI arrests this year, and I didn't compare that to previous years. It seems like we are up a little bit on DUI arrests since 2020. We had been in a decline on DUI arrests.
Right.
I look at 72 DUI arrests, which is a decent number for the year, but when I was a rookie here, you'd have officers going out and one officer would get 30 DUI arrests a year.
Wow.
So we are down.
Yeah.
And hopefully that means that people are being more careful and
Yeah.
are planning ahead and doing the smart things.
When you were a rookie officer, though, a DUI arrest probably didn't take as much time as it does today either.
I wouldn't say that, actually.
You wouldn't say that? Okay.
I always figure a DUI arrest from the time I turn the emergency lights on until the time I hit submit on the report is typically 4 hours. And that's a minimum number.
Yeah.
That's if everything goes smooth.
Right, right.
You're looking at an officer taking about 4 hours of time to process a DUI and type everything up and put all the evidence away and everything is done.
That's what I was thinking of when maybe it took more time.
So no, it actually probably is more we do. The advantage is we have more efficient record management system.
Great.
So although we're pumping out more information now, our records management system that we got 3 years ago now, the Zerker, has sped things along.
That's awesome.
Nowadays, if you enter the names and the vehicle description on the call for service, then that transfers over to your case report automatically. Whereas used to be everything had to be entered on the call for service, and then you had to take that call for service or take the information you had and rekey it onto a case report. And so you had to reinvent the wheel, whereas nowadays all that information transfers over, so you don't have to retype the VIN every time.
So
I know at one time in the old days when we did things manually, I counted up on a DUI arrest how many times I had to write the driver's name down. And I came up with 14 times that I had to write or type the driver's name on the various pieces of paper that we had to do.
There is some advantages to improve technology, right?
Yeah, so the technology, well, the problem is with the technology is it does stuff like that automatically, but at the same time, we now have more things, we have more forms we have to fill out.
Right, exactly.
So it kind of has evened out. It's still about a 4-hour job.
Yeah.
But to get, like I say, from the time you turn your lights on until the time you hit submit, you're looking at about 4 hours.
Yeah, wow. So as a longtime police officer, you've got some experience with drunken driving arrests and incidents. So can you tell me a little bit about some of the more serious or concerning incidents you've seen through the years that kind of lend to why this is an important issue in our community?
Well, certainly the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is traffic accidents, and that's why we're out there looking for traffic violations, looking for impaired drivers. Of course, you say drunken driving, but it actually includes all impaired drivers, whether it's the most common substance for impairment is alcohol, of course. And that's also probably the easiest one to detect because your nose...
you can smell it.
You can smell the alcohol on a person's breath. But we also have, prescription drug abuse, and the opioids. We have illegal drug use, abuse, fentanyl, heroin. We're seeing more and more heroin in town, more and more fentanyl. Methamphetamine and cocaine are still out there. Marijuana, if they smoked recently, your nose will pick that up as well. But if they're doing the edibles or something like that, then you're not going to smell that. So you have to base it more upon behavior. So, and over the years, we've had some nasty drunk driving accidents. We've actually had some fatality accidents here in Scottsbluff caused by drunken drivers. So that's always a concern. And we still have a lot of traffic accidents in Scottsbluff. I looked it up as of this morning. So far in 2021, there have been 693 traffic accidents in Scottsbluff this year. So that's well over 50 a month that we've experienced. Of that number, 92 of those were injury accidents where an ambulance had to come and transport people. And that's, for a community our size, that's a large number of injury accidents even. Good news is, in town, we have not had any fatality traffic accidents this year yet. So,
and of course, over imbibing, I guess, can also, you guys have other issues that can be alcohol or substance abuse related. Domestic violence and things like that may not be addressed in this campaign because you're focused on traffic enforcement, but can also become an issue in the community, I guess.
Yeah, like I said, I've been doing law enforcement for forever.
Mm-hmm.
I've been driving somebody's patrol car for 35 years
Yeah.
now. So, yeah, my observation in that 35 years is that our number one generator of problems for us is substance abuse in general. People who are under the influence of whatever it is are more likely to make poor decisions.
Right.
They have shorter tempers, which means more violence is going to occur. Of course, more accidents are going to occur. So substance abuse in general, it also generates more, substance abuse generates more mental health calls for us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also, personal opinion, it adds to the homeless population.
Yeah.
Substance abuse does.
Uh-huh.
So as substance abuse in general fuels an awful lot of what I do.
It does, yeah. Yeah.
And not all of it is directly, not all of it is a drunk driving arrest or an impaired driving arrest, but you know, assaults, open containers, even shopliftings and thefts and vandalisms. A lot of those are caused by people who are under the influence at the time they do that. Right.
And I'm sure that for you guys, your key message is don't do it. Don't drunk and drive. If you're going to go out and celebrate the holidays, make sure you have a designated driver. Are there any other kind of tips for people?
Well, certainly plan ahead.
Yeah.
If you know you're going out, you know you're going to the bar, you know you're going to a party someplace.
Right.
If you're hosting a party someplace, make sure you have somebody designated to be the sober driver. And I remind people that a designated driver means you don't drink at all.
Right.
I have arrested several people who said they were the designated driver, but they were perhaps the least drunk of the person in the car, but they were still drunk. So make the designated driver doesn't drink at all, and make sure you have that plan put together ahead of time so you can get people back where they belong safely. The last thing I want to do, and I've had to do this more times than I care to, is to go knock on somebody's door in the middle of the night and say, be holding a driver's license in my hand and say, is this your family member?
Yeah, and then they've passed.
And have to give them the bad news that they're not ever coming home again. Yeah. It's hard on the people we have to give that message to. It's hard on us too. It's tough on us too. You know, I think of all the bad things that I've had to do, traumatic incidents I've had to been involved in. That is the one thing I just absolutely cringe.
Right.
I hate having to do that.
Yeah.
And I've had to do it too many times.
Too many times, and it even just adds that extra layer when it happens during the holidays.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it certainly does. So, you don't want anybody's Christmas tree to be black.
No, no.
And that will be a bad memory for the holidays for the rest of those people's lives.
Right.
They always associate that holiday with the death of
their loved one.
And a lot of them are just totally unnecessary.
Yeah, preventable.
Easily preventable. With just a little bit of thinking ahead. And I would say when you're already out at the bar starting to drink and you don't have a plan for how you're going to get home safely, it's too late. You're already behind the curve there.
Right. Yeah.
So have a plan in place before you leave, not try to figure it out after you got there and figure out you've had too many to drink. And if you're concerned you've had too many to drink, you've had too many to drink.
Right. Do you think that the selective enforcement campaigns like You Drink, You Drive, You Lose help kind of get that word out to the public? Is it at least maybe a reminder each year?
Yeah, it certainly is a reminder. Make sure you're buckling up, make sure you have a plan, make sure you're driving sober. It certainly doesn't hurt anything.
Right.
And then have that extra enforcement wave out there.
Yeah,
hopefully makes it a little bit safer so that everybody can get to grandma's house or wherever it is you're going to celebrate the holidays and back again without having to be injured or killed or even if you just, someone, if your car gets destroyed and you only have liability insurance on it, now you're not going your car's gone and you lose your source of transportation.
Right.
So it could be as little as that or as much as, a family member is never coming home again. All of which are bad.
All of which are bad, right. So, well, thank you again for joining me today to talk about the holiday enforcements. I really appreciate you helping us and getting out the word.
Okay, and I appreciate your publicity as well.
No problem. Well, I'm Maunette with the Star-Herald. I was joined today by Sergeant Phil Eckerberg. Make sure you check out more community coverage on starherald.com or pick up our print edition. Thank you.